Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from eTrailer, and if you're looking to get a sliding fifth wheel with ISR rails installed on your 2021 Ford F-250, then you're on the right page. Because the B&W, it really is one of my favorite brands when it comes to fifth wheels, and the installation kit for the ISR rails that are custom fit for this truck are on the same par. B&W really does a great job of making sure you get a quality product, and the fit and finish throughout the entire kit really holds true to that. So looking at the Patriot, this falls into a category that it's a slightly lower capacity than some of other B&W products out there on the market, but if you don't have something that's over 18,000 pounds, there's really no reason to get a more heavy-duty fifth wheel. The great thing about this one is it's on a sliding base. So if you've towed a fifth wheel before and you know that cab clearance is a real thing, having that sliding really makes it nice when you're in those tight situations. And if you're unaware of it, if you have a short bed truck with a fifth wheel, it does get pretty close to the cab. And when you're really cutting it tight, whether you're in a gas station or a campground, you may get to a situation where it can make contact with your cab and damage not only your trailer, but your truck in the process. So what's really nice about a sliding fifth wheel is if you're in that predicament, you can save yourself from unhooking from that trailer by simply pulling this handle and pulling the truck forward. And that way, this will latch in place, giving you about a foot of extra space to make that turn. Once you make the turn, you just simply pull this handle back up, and then you can back the truck up. That'll latch in place, and then you're good to go. So a few drawbacks of the sliding fifth wheel is the fact that it is a little bit larger than your traditional fifth wheel, so it takes up more space in your bed. It is also heavier, so if you plan on taking this in and out, just keep that in mind. But really all sliding fifth wheels get to be pretty heavy. The cool part about the Patriot, as well as all the other B&W fifth wheels, are going to be the fact that if you are planning on removing this, you can take it down piece by piece super easily. In fact, our head today, it's spring loaded, so that's really cool. It's got nice urethane, so smooth actuation, and it also pivots side to side, so you're really going to get a great towing experience. But when you're done and you want to take this out, pulling up these handles that are nice touch points is going to keep your hands nice and clean, and it unlatches it, making it super easy to remove this and cut down on some of the weight if you plan on removing the base as well. Now this entire kit not only comes with our sliding fifth wheel, but also the rails. It has the nice gray powder coat finish that really stands out with B&W products. The same goes for the custom fit side rails that bolt up to the frame. So you can tell that you have a B&W rail kit just by looking at it from the outside, but also when you're installing it, you're going to know you have B&W because, as I mentioned, the installation is really, really good. As far as using factory spots, there's really no drilling or fabrication required, except for, well, drilling the holes for the bolts on the rails. But being ISR standard means that if you ever wanted to move up to a heavier duty capacity fifth wheel, you could absolutely do that because this follows a standard size, so you should be able to just drop in and go. Beyond that, as far as capacity, as I mentioned, it's rated at 18,000 pounds. You also have a vertical load limit of 4,500 pounds. So overall, a really, really great option, and I think you're going to be super happy with it. Now, I'm going to be walking you through the entire installation and also how to assemble the fifth wheel, which is actually pretty easy to do. As far as the assembly of the rails go and installation, it's not terribly difficult, but I would set aside a couple hours to be able to get underneath the truck, and really getting it all in place isn't bad. Once you start torquing on the hardware, it can be a little tedious, but beyond that, I'll be with you through the entire process step by step and show you how to get it installed. If you decide during the video though, you know what, I don't have the time, the place, the tools, or even the want to install this myself, but I still need to get a fifth wheel and I want the Patriot, we can help you out there, because you can simply put in your zip code in our dealer locator, find a list of shops close to you that can get your rail kit as well as your fifth wheel all assembled, so that way you can drop it off, pick it up, and be ready to hit the road with your fifth wheel. With that being said, let's take a look at that installation. To begin our installation, we're going to want to grab a tape measure and hop in the bed of the truck, because we're gonna get into drilling holes in the bed pretty quickly because getting our rear rail really sets the tone for the rest of the installation. So on ours today, whether it be a long bed or the 6-foot, 10-inch bed like we have today, it's gonna use the same measurements. Now, something you're gonna wanna take into account though is if you have a spray-in bed liner, when we measure, you're gonna wanna add 1/8 of an inch because you need to account for that overspray that's generally on the edge. If yours is a raw metal edge, you can use those measurements all the same. Today we actually had a plastic linered bed. We pulled that liner out. That's not to say you can't do the installation with it. They do kind of get tricky as they stick up a little bit, so getting pins in the rails long term can be tricky unless you cut them out. So if you have that, you may want to remove it. It'll make it a lot easier for the installation. So with our tape measure and a paint marker, we're gonna start getting our rail lined up. So what we're gonna be doing is measuring 29 3/8. And that's gonna be from the outside of the bed at our tailgate here to the front edge of our rail. So we're gonna kind of just mock this up a little bit. And I'll grab my measurement right here. So 29 3/8. We'll get this pushed back a hair. So when we're doing these measurements, again, we're gonna do the length, but also the width. And so what I'm gonna do is get my tape measure, in the corrugation, nice and tight here. And I'm gonna use painter's tape to mark out the 29 3/8. So here's my line. Make sure that the tape is on the opposite side, but that way we can use that as a reference mark for our rail. I'm gonna do the same on the side. You can use a chalk marker or a marker that comes off. Just know that if you're using a paint marker, any of these lines, we don't wanna see that long term once it's installed. So 29 3/8, we'll put that right about here. And I'll be double checking all of this, but again, these are good reference marks. So I'll get this side as well. Now I'll grab our rails and get this centered up. So you can use the bed corrugation to get you pretty close. I've got this taped out around it. I know exactly where it needs to go. And now we're gonna be drilling out. And it's important, you'll see that there's multiple different spots, and that's to account for universal fit on a lot of different trucks. Ours today, we're gonna be using the furthest outside holes, front and back, both of the middle holes, and then again on the outside here. So if you want, you can use a paint marker. I realize though I can use this as a template, and just with an 1/8 inch drill bit, we're gonna drill through each of these holes. And as I mentioned, this is gonna set the tone for our brackets. This is really gonna make sure that we have everything lined up. So take your time here, get it as centered as possible, and then we'll drill through. With those holes drilled, that's going to allow us to grab our bracket, and these are side specific. B&W's done a good job. They have P for passenger, D for driver, and what we're going to do is slide this in and really try to align the holes on the frame. And based off that hole drilled, you should be able to see some light through it. It should be centered up in here. If it's not, you need to double check your measurements because it's going to throw everything else off. So as I hold this up, you can see this square one will have like an offset spacer, but this hole's lined up. And as I reach up, my hole is perfectly centered up. So do that on both sides. Theoretically, if you measured everything right, you should be good. With those holes drilled out, our brackets are lined up. We're gonna set our rail aside for now because we are gonna need to prep this with some tape. Because Ford uses aluminum beds, it makes the trucks nice and light, but as we're putting steel on it, even with a powder coat or paint, dissimilar metals can cause corrosion long term. So we will be putting tape on all of our hardware that's going to be touching aluminum. So that's something to keep in mind as you're putting stuff in. If I don't mention it, if it's touching aluminum, err on the side of caution and put that tape there to create the barrier. So what we're going to do now is enlarge all of the holes with a 9/16 drill bit. We'll do that first. And what I recommend doing is grab a carriage bolt or any of the carriage bolts, not necessarily this long one, but we're gonna have this as a reference, so as we drill them out, we can drop these in. And something that I've learned, don't be afraid if you go a little bit larger or waller out the hole a bit. Sometimes that gives you a little bit of adjustment to where everything still lines up perfectly. So if you go a little bit larger, I would actually kind of recommend it. But first things first, we'll get these all enlarged. Now with those enlarged, I can see that bolts can pass in. Like I said, a little bit of wiggle room is not a bad thing. Now I did not enlarge our most forward center hole, so towards the cab. And that's because if you looked under when we drilled out those holes with the bracket, these sit in a box that goes on the bed for structural support. So in that channel, it does get a little bit unique on this spot here, because what we're gonna do is drill this top section out wider so this pipe spacer can go in. So we're gonna drill all the way directly down through that bed channel. So something I'll point out too, as you're drilling these ones, don't go too far, just drill this out. But this one, we want a nice, clean, straight shot, because as we feed this down, this wants to go through that 9/16 hole so we can tighten it. But we'll come back with the step bit and enlarge this out to 7/8. So let's go ahead, we'll get this enlarged first and drill all the way through. And really try to get it as centered up as possible. This will make the installation a lot easier by taking your time and just making sure that it's not off canter, because that can pull the rail one way or the other. So with that passed all the way through, grab my step bit, and we're going to go to 7/8. So with that enlarged, this should drop in and sit pretty well flush here. So that's just going to keep it from crushing as we tighten down our hardware. So at this point, what we're going to want to do is we're going to get all our shavings vacuumed up. Now, as I mentioned, that vinyl tape that we use, make sure that we don't have dissimilar metals making contact. And it is an aluminum bed, so normally with a steel bed, this raw metal could turn into rust and corrosion. You really don't have that much of an issue with aluminum, but because the bolts are going to be touching this hardware, or the raw metal, I like to take a paint marker and just run it over those edges. It's just an added layer of protection. So I'll just go through and kind of, mark all these up with paint to cover that raw edge on all of our holes. Now we're going to get our brackets put in place. You can see that I put our tape on here, so they only have it on the outside. I went on both sides, again, just for added protection. And what we're going to do is slide this into place, but we're going to want to have our hardware ready to hold it. So for now, just grab the large bolt and put a flat washer on it. You're going to want 2 of them on our driver's side. So again, using that hole that we drilled out as our reference, that'll put us where we need to be. So that should line up with factory holes on the frame. And with those passed through, we're going to raise the truck up and finish up the hardware. Now underneath, we're going to be finishing it up with a flat washer that's similar to the outside one, a split washer, and a nut. So pretty easy to gain access to this one. Brings up another point. If you wanted to lower down your spare tire for extra room, you could absolutely do that. Not necessary, but something worthwhile. So we're going to leave this just hand tight for now, because that bracket, as we start to feed hardware in, we're going to want to have a little bit of wiggle room to draw it up. So we'll get this in place, and then we're going to do the same combination of hardware on our other one, which is going to be a little bit trickier to gain access to, but it's going to be located up here. Our passenger side, we're gonna grab same combination that we passed through on the driver's side, and we're gonna get one of these mounted up. So we'll slide this in. And the hole that's closer towards the tailgate or the rear of the truck, we'll pass that in. Now, you'll notice this square section here is a little bit different, and that's where our hardware will change just a little bit. What we're gonna do is grab our bolt and this large spacer, we'll feed that on there, and then this offset one is gonna align like this. So you can slide that in there. We'll raise this up, pass that in place. And then as far as finishing it up on the back side, it's going to be the same as we did on the driver's side. So we'll head back under and get that flat washer, split washer, and nut put on there. At this point, we're going to get ready to put the hardware in for our rear rail. You can see I already got my tape put on our rail. We're going to grab that spacer. We're going to drop this in place and just try to get it somewhat centered here. And then I'm going to remove my tape that I had marking those spots, because with our holes drilled out and double checking those brackets, should be in a good spot. And we'll drop this in place. And first I'll take the carriage bolt that looks like this and pass it through where that tube spacer is. And that should feed all the way down through the hole that we drilled. And sometimes the powder coat that's on our rail will cause this to be a little bit tight. So if that's the case, once we get to a good point with those carriage bolts, we can knock that down with a hammer. But it's going to be important to follow hardware here, because in these holes that are in those corrugations in line with this one, we're going to be using these bolts with a split washer. Those are going to feed into a handle nut that will feed in eventually. So we'll put those in the back side. And with the screws in the back, the rest are 3 holes up front. We're going to just drop in these carriage bolts. Now the next thing we need to do is grab our U-shaped spacers, and these are going to go in between the corrugations, because as we tighten down these bolts, it can bend the bed pretty easily. So these create a nice spot to keep that gap filled so it won't crush it. So we're going to be putting one here as well as on this center one, and then when we get underneath, anywhere where there's going to be a gap, we're going to be using these. So they're going to come into play. And again, these are going to be touching that bed, so we are going to put a piece of tape on here. Take the tape side, put that down, and then we'll just slightly lift up on our rail and get that to go around our bolt. Now for our next step, we are going to want an extra set of hands here, because as we get the bolts threaded on, those cap head bolts that we pass through are in this bed channel, and the way that we're going to get them slid in, this is going to be the hardware that we use with the welded on nut, and this handle nut this handle that they include makes it to where you can feed this in. So what I like to set it up like this, because you'll feed it in and then pull this back until the bolt kind of feeds in here. And I did put a slight bend to get it as level with that bolt as possible. So you're going to feed that in there, and then have someone in the bed with a 3/4 inch socket and a ratchet just spinning it to get those threads to engage. Once it's started, you should be fine, but we'll be doing this process on both sides of the truck. This can be a little bit of a tricky process, but I ended up doing a dual bend. That way I could feed it in and just kind of slightly wedge it to where it's square up. So just take your time. Once you start to get those threaded on, we'll be good there, and then we can continue on with the rest of the hardware. So to get our hardware bolted down, we're going to be using the U-shaped spacer on this outside spot. So you can see the corrugation here. That would cause it to crunch down. So we're going to grab that spacer and feed this into place. Make sure you have that tape side up. And when you get that in place, we're then going to finish it up using, we have our flat washer We also have our round washer as well as a split washer and a nut. Now, sometimes on these, it can get to the point where you really don't have enough threads to get it all on there. But I'm gonna for sure put this big one, and we may need to push this up. We'll do that flat washer, split washer, and on this one we did end up having enough threads, so that's gonna work out. And then as we go across, we have our bolts that are located in the center. These, we just put the same combination of hardware there, no need for the spacers. And then on the other side, we just repeated the same process that we had on our driver's side. So get these all loosely in place. We don't need to snug them down quite yet. Grab an extra set of hands, and we're gonna grab our base and get this into our bed. And the reason we're doing this is because we're gonna want to use our base to align our front rail. So get the front rail kind of just dropped in there. We're gonna hop in the bed, drop our tabs into our rear mount, and then from there, we're gonna do a little bit of adjustment, but that's gonna create that template for that front rail. So as we guide this in, we'll first put it into our rear. So get those tabs lined up. And then once that drops in, just pull up the front and then align these tabs in there as well. To get a proper fit, a lot of times you want to make sure that it's going to be able to drop in. If you remove this regularly, it can bind up or not even want to slot in. So it's really important that we get this kind of dialed in. Again, small measurements can make a big difference in the usability of it. So what we'll do first is we're gonna pull back on the base as far as we can on our fixed rear mount, and then on our forward mount, we're gonna actually push that towards the cab. So if you can pull on the base and push that forward, that's what we're gonna be looking for. There's probably not a ton of play. And then from here, I'm gonna go and measure side to side. There's a little bit of tolerances that you can kind of adjust side to side, so we wanna make sure it's all dialed in. Now, when it comes to getting this all drilled out, we're gonna be doing the same method of doing a pilot hole first and then enlarging it. Now we're gonna be using the same outside holes here, and then when we get to the center, we're only gonna be doing the most to the front, so we're not gonna be drilling a hole here. So we'll go through and get these all drilled out. So with those pilot holes all drilled, I'm gonna raise up the front, pull our rail back a little bit, enlarge all of them, and then we're just gonna drop in the carriage bolts throughout those 5 holes, and then we'll make sure you put that U-shaped spacer in that center corrugation. So same concept that we had before, so we'll get this knocked out. We'll get all of our hardware passed in. And then it's also going to be important to still, since we move this all around, is to give it that tug to make sure that it's all dialed in properly. So now underneath, again, where there's going to be a lapse in that corrugation, so our outside spots, we're going to put our U-shaped spacers. The same is going to go for the other side. And then in our center, it's going to be a similar concept as we did on our channel here. We'll just get all of our hardware loosely in place. Now everything's in place, and as far as getting it tightened down, there is going to be a process that we're going to want to follow. And first I'm going to snug everything down and then come back with the torque wrench, but we're going to follow the same steps. So the first thing we're going to want to do is get the bolts that are passed down through our rails. So that's going to be all of those carriage bolts, and then I'll go up and get the ones that are in our channel. But we'll zip all these down. And then we'll come back and get the frame bolt tightened down. So if you wanted to, you can get this snugged down as well when you're done. All of our smaller bolts, carriage bolts, and the ones that feed into the channel, this is going to be a 3/4 inch socket to accomplish that. And again, there is a torque setting. I'm going to use an impact to just zing them in, but you don't need to get crazy on these. Now once everything's snugged down, we'll just go back with our torque wrench. The settings are found in the instruction manual, and so make sure that you're adjusting your torque wrench accordingly for all the rail bolts versus the ones that go into our bracket on the frame. So we'll go through, get these all torqued down. Now with all the hardware torqued down, the base rails are officially installed. And what I like to do before getting everything assembled here on our fifth wheel is make sure that the fit is good, because if it's really, really tight and you have to pry it up with something, you might want to go down, loosen up the bolts, and just really hit that rail again to see if you can get it loose. Ours is a little tight, but I can still pull it up and it'll drop in. So as you start using it, you know, it's going to kind of work its tolerances in, whether it be a buildup of powder coat or whatever it may be. So main thing is that you can get it to drop in nice and clean, and we'll get this pinned up and start assembling our fifth wheel head. To get your height dialed in, if you want to do it out the gate and try to get it as close as possible, the best way to do it, if you have your fifth wheel handy and you have it level, measure from the ground to the top of the plate right where your kingpin is. Take that measurement and then compare it with the measurement from the ground to the top of your tailgate when it's folded down. That's going to get your bed height. If you subtract that number from your initial measurement, that differentiator will give you the height that you need to put your head at. So then you can measure from the bed and get that head exactly where you need it. It'll get you pretty close. But once you hook up and you have everything set up and tow a little bit, if you need to adjust it, you can absolutely do that. More times than not, we just set ours up in the middle range. That way people can dial theirs in accordingly. And it's pretty easy to do. You're just going to have bolts with a split washer, and these are all threaded holes. So we'll just put this in the middle spot here. And then we're going to thread 4 bolts per support. And we're just going to repeat that same process on the other side. So I'm going to start snugging these down with a 3/4 inch socket. And then as far as the torque settings, if you open up the envelope that has the assembly instructions for your fifth wheel head, that will have that torque setting dialed in. So we'll go through, get these all torqued down. Now, a nice little feature that B&W puts on all of their fifth wheel heads is going to be just this little spring bar. And what that's going to do is make sure that the head stays in a nice spot. It's going to make it a lot easier to attach your kingpin. And to get it set up, it's not terribly hard to do. So what I do first is we're going to do it on the driver's side, and we're going to put it towards the cab. And this bracket is going to get hammered on here. It can be a little bit tricky. So I like to make sure that I don't have a ton of hardware to work around as I do it. But this spring bar will guide us roughly where we need to get it mounted. So this will go on to the bracket, and this will spring that head up. So what we're looking to do is just line those holes up for now. And you want 1/2 inch between the top of this spring and the bottom part of this rubber. So ours looks to be right about here. So I'm going to hold this bracket in place and then get it hammered on. And more times if you get the corner on, this is kind of a one-shot thing, so make sure that you have it on pretty good. But a good hammer blow to a corner will get that started, and then you can just kind of get the rest knocked on. From here, we will grab, you'll see this tab, the bent little arm here. That is going to rest here and kind of hold that in place. And then we're going to grab our bolt and our nylon nut. And then we'll get this tightened down. So the bolt head will go from the metal bracket side, and then we'll have our nylon lock nut right here, and then we'll just get this snug down. Now open up your owner's manual of the head, and you're going to find that they include white lithium grease. So another nice little benefit there from B&W. And as far as greasing this, we're going to want to put it on the silicone on our supports. It's just going to make it less, noise overall, and it's going to be a nice smooth actuation. So we'll be using this a little bit on the head as well. So just kind of coat this on the top a little bit, and then either with a brush or with a glove, just kind of get this coated up. So with that all greased up, we're going to drop our head on, and the cool part about this is it latches on by these handles, but as you hold it up, it's spring loaded. So once you drop it in place and let go of the handles, your head is officially on. So we're going to get our handle attached, and that should be the last little bit of it before we're able to start using our fifth wheel. Now with our handle, we're going to put this in place, and we're going to drop our bolts in. So we're going to have the head of the bolt up top, and then we're going to put our nut on the bottom. So we're going to use the outside holes because the center one's going to be where we pin the handle. So we'll just get these hand tightened. And then to get this snugged down, our Allen key is going to be a 7/32. If you have a driver, that really does make it a lot easier. And I believe the bottom to be 9/16 or 1/2 inch, one of those. But we'll get this snugged down. So it is a 9/16, so we'll get this all snugged down. All right, now with that handle in place and our heads in place, I'm going to open up our jaw, and with the leftover grease, where the kingpin is attached and kind of in this mechanism, I'm going to put that grease and use my glove to kind of put that on there. Now, you may be tempted to put it all on the head. Some people like that. Me personally, if you are planning on removing this at any point, I would highly recommend just get a lube plate. It's a much cleaner operation. You don't have to worry about grease getting all over your clothes every time you want to move your fifth wheel. So just personal opinion, but as far as where the kingpin attaches, this is definitely a good spot to put it. And also it's going to be a good maintenance point long term. So you'll know exactly where you need to grease, when you need to. There's also Zerk fittings on the head too. So feel free to take a look at the intervals in the manual, and those will tell you when you need to do all that. So with this all lubricated, we're ready to hook up our fifth wheel. So if that's the case, you just get this pin off, open up your jaw, and get your kingpin loaded up. That's going to close this down, pin it, and then you're ready to go. Now if you are not towing right away, you can just simply pin this up and you should be good to go. So overall, it's really not that bad of an installation to get this in place, and this is probably the way that I'd go. If I'm looking at a fifth wheel that's going to fall into that 18,000 category, this is a great option, especially with the sliding. You won't have to get out of, and undo your trailer if you're in a tight situation. Having that sliding is really, really nice. So just take your time with this, and I think you're going to be really happy overall. This is some of my favorite products that we sell here at eTrailer. B&W really nails it out of the park. So if you're looking at this and the installation seems like something you're willing to tackle, then by all means, I think this is going to be a great option for you. And throughout that installation, if you come up with any tips or tricks or pointers for people at home that you want to share, that helps us not only make better videos, but also helps neighbors like you really make sure that we're getting the best information for an investment like this, and you get the best towing experience. Beyond that, I appreciate you for joining me for the look and installation of the B&W Patriot sliding fifth wheel with custom installation ISR rails on a 2021 Ford F-250.